Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Think about it. We all have those things we want to do. That big project, maybe learning a new skill,
Mm-hmm.
a goal that just always seems kind of far off.
Mm-hmm. And we tell ourselves stories about why, don't we?
Totally. I'm just swamped, or life's too crazy right now. Where would I find the time? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it feels very real, very external. Like the world is just conspiring against us getting things done.
Exactly. But the source we're digging into today offers a pretty different take.
Okay.
We're looking at excerpts from Victor Lung's piece, How to Stay Motivated and Get Things Done. And what really struck me is how it flips that common idea on its head.
How so?
Well, it basically argues that the main roadblock usually isn't the external stuff like, not enough hours in the day, but it's more about our internal state, our mindset.
Ah, okay. So shifting the focus inwards. Away from just blaming circumstances.
Precisely. So that's our mission for this deep dive, to really unpack that internal landscape using this source as our guide.
Makes sense.
Loom suggests the difference between people who actually, start things and those who feel stuck often comes down to just two core principles. So we're going to explore those and see how they might change how we think about motivation.
All right, let's do it. Where does the source start? What's principle number one?
So the first one is about connection.
Yeah.
It suggests you have to find a way to genuinely connect with what you're doing. The source actually uses the phrase, fall in love with it.
Fall in love. That sounds intense for getting stuff done. Like we're talking productivity here, not romance.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But what does the source really mean by that? Is it just about liking it?
Well, the source presents it less as, a vague feeling and more as the actual fuel you need.
Okay, fuel.
Yeah. The idea is when you're really deeply aligned with something or truly passionate about it, it just changes the whole dynamic. It stops feeling like this chore, this obligation you have to force yourself through.
And become
Something that pulls you in. Like it has its own gravity.
gravity. I like that. It draws you towards it.
Exactly. The source uses this pretty vivid analogy like a gambler drawn to the table. Someone who has to be there, not because they should, but because the pull is just irresistible.
Okay. But gambling's based on chance.
Right. And that's the crucial difference the source points out. When you channel that same kind of intense focus and energy into a craft or a mission, something you choose, and you put in the time to get good at it, well, your results depend on your skill and effort.
Not just luck. You're actually building something.
Exactly. You're not just hoping the dice roll your way.
Okay, so this internal pull, this passion,
No.
the source is saying that's a way stronger motivator than any external should or pressure.
Seems so.
It's what makes you want to find the time, even when things get busy. It's not about waiting for free time to magically appear.
Right. It's about the activity itself being so compelling that you make prioritizing it happen. You find a way.
It flips the energy. If the thing itself is rewarding and pulling you in, the question changes. It's not if you can fit it in.
But how you're going to make sure you do.
Got it. Okay. So principle one, find that magnetic pull, that passion. That's your main engine. What about the second principle?
So the second one tackles maybe the biggest excuse we all use. Time.
Yes, the time excuse.
It zooms in on that question we ask ourselves all the time. How could I possibly have time for this?
Yeah, it feels like the absolute core of the problem for so many people, myself included sometimes.
It really does. But the source argues that asking the question that way is actually part of the problem. It's the barrier itself.
Oh.
Because framing it like that, how could I possibly... It kind of assumes it's impossible from the start, right? It's like asking a question that expects the answer you can't. A closed door.
Okay, I see that. So what's the alternative?
The source says the key shift, the really essential thing, is to just stop asking that question and instead start asking, when will I make time for this?
When will I make time? Huh. Okay, that sounds like a small tweak in words.
But the implication is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it assumes you can do it. It assumes you have agency. It's about possibility.
Exactly. It's a question that sort of pries the door open by asking, when will I make time? You skip past that initial, oh no, it's impossible feeling.
And jump straight into figuring it out.
Right. You're taking responsibility. You're looking for a way forward, even if it's just finding a tiny slot. The source suggests just that simple language change can be really powerful. It stops that self-doubt spiral before it even gets going.
That connects to something else the source mentioned that I thought was really insightful.
What's that?
It talked about how sometimes really smart, capable people are actually the best at convincing themselves not to try things.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
They build these, incredibly detailed cases for why something won't work. All the potential problems, all the obstacles.
Disguising fear as logic.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Making their own doubts and fears sound like just rational analysis.
Yeah, that resonates. And what's fascinating is how the source frames that whole dynamic. It argues our biggest hurdles, they're almost never the external things we point to. They're the internal battles, you know? People usually don't fail because the world literally stopped them in their tracks. More often, it's because they kind of gave up internally.
To what?
To doubt, to delay, to distraction.
Doubt, delay, distraction. The internal enemies. Wow.
Yeah. Not the traffic jam, not the full inbox, but those things inside our own heads.
So the source is saying just recognizing that internal fight is the crucial first step.
Seems like it. And then it gives a really clear instruction, like a command almost.
Which is?
The second you feel that spark, that little, hey, maybe I could do this, you have to act right away.
Don't wait.
Don't let the doubt creep in. Don't let delay snuff it out. Just start.
It sounds like a call to just embrace the messiness then, knowing it won't be perfect.
Totally. The path is never going to be a straight line, right? There will always be unexpected stuff popping up.
Detours.
Exactly, detours. But the source really hammers home the need to be flexible, to persist. You might have to zig and zag a lot, but the key is just to keep moving. Don't stall out.
And that's where the positive angle comes in, I suppose. The source seems quite optimistic about the process.
Yeah, it suggests that every single step you take forward, doesn't matter how small it feels, it's actually a win.
A win in itself.
Right. It's not all about reaching some distant finish line way off in the future. It's about the actual process of moving, of figuring things out, learning as you go.
Adapting.
And this connects back to those deeper rewards the source talks about.
The joy of creating.
Yeah, that profound joy in making something, putting something new out there. And also the deep satisfaction you get from actually solving problems, tackling challenges.
So these aren't just items on a to-do list.
Not at all. The source calls them gifts. Gifts that remind us we're alive, that we're capable, that we can actually make a difference, you know, even if it's just one small step, one problem solved at a time.
Okay. So let's try and boil this down. What's the core message from Victor Lund's piece that we've explored?
Well, it seems like a really strong argument that our biggest limits aren't really outside us. They're internal.
Right. The key isn't waiting for the perfect moment or having unlimited time.
No, it's about cultivating that internal drive, that passion, the thing that pulls you. That's the fuel.
And it's about flipping that question, isn't it? Moving from how could I possibly have time
to when will I make time? Shifting from seeing impossibility to claiming your own agency.
And then recognizing that the real struggle is usually against our own internal stuff. The doubt, the urge to delay, the distractions.
Yeah. And winning those battles just by starting, even if it feels messy or imperfect.
And just committing to taking that very next step, always the next step.
And the source reminds us, you know, the real joy isn't just in the destination, it's in the doing, the creating, the solving. That's where we really feel alive.
So building on that whole idea, focusing on just taking step after step consistently.
Yeah.
Here's maybe a final thought for you listening to take away. If the source is right, and every single step forward, no matter how tiny, is a genuine win.
Yeah.
Well, how might focusing only on figuring out and taking just the very next single step, nothing beyond that,
Yeah.
how might that completely change that overwhelming feeling you get when you look at a huge distant goal? Could it turn that feeling of impossibility into just a continuous series of small, manageable, achievable victories?
Definitely a different lens to view the journey through. Food for thought.